Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today is the 21st of January. I just made a trip to Agua Prieta. One of our hunters got done early and actually needed to get home. So I made a drive into Agua Prieta. It was raining last night. Here with me, I've got Jason Johnson hailing from the metropolis, big town, big state of Utah. Love that place. Love Utah. How you doing, Jason?
I'm good, thanks.
Jason was the hunt winner with Epic Outdoors, Adam Bronson and Jason Carter. And from what I understand, you have pretty good luck with the draws. You drew the statewide desert sheep tag, a couple years ago?
2015, yep.
2015, and hunted with Adam Bronson.
Correct, Bronson Outfitters.
Bronson Outfitting, and those guys do a great job. And so the way this all went down with Adam and Jason is last year I saw them at the Western Hunting Expo there in Salt Lake, and they said, do you have any openings for your Coues deer hunts coming up? And I said, yes, I do. And they said, we'd like to book a spot because we're starting a new application service, Epic Outdoors Magazine, and we want to offer it as a hunt giveaway. So they bought a slot, and here you sit.
Here I am, yeah.
And it's kind of funny. I said on the last podcast that you actually weren't the first guy drawn out of the hat, but the first guy that they drew, he decided that he didn't want to come this far out to come hunt an insignificant deer.
That's what I hear, yeah.
And then the next guy was dove hunting in Argentina.
Yep, a week after, so yep.
Yeah, so his schedule was all mucked up, and then, boom, your name was drawn, and
here I am.
Here you are.
Yeah.
Well, it's been great having you. We're actually kind of in a rain delay. I've got Hunter Haynes over here cutting up back straps. Hunter, how you doing?
I'm good, buddy.
Last night, so the hunters have a house here that we're in now, and it's got big, thick, it's like an adobe-style house and big, thick walls. And last night we had a heck of a windstorm and rainstorm blow through here. So much so that me and Dar and Haynes were in the, let's call it the guide shack or the cowboy quarters. And about 2 a.m, did it not sound like the roof blew off?
Yeah, I thought we got hit with lightning or something.
It was as if the whole house was shot by a bazooka. As a matter of fact, it was shot by a bazooka. It proceeded to pound on us and blow so hard, and you could hear tin and all sorts of stuff on the roof rattling around.
Had to have you pour water in my eye at about 2 a.m.
Yeah, and then part of the chinking on the adobe, Dar and Hunter had a face full of rocks in their face. And to make a long story short, woke up this morning, took the other hunter, took Cameron to Agua Prieta, and I come back, and the ranch owner is coming in with all sorts of supplies. And sure enough, the roof blew off. And literally, you guys are here to attest to it. It blew at least 200 yards from the original house out into the desert.
Yeah. Lucky me and Dar's, it flew literally over 2 trucks.
Well, and mine was parked right there, too. It must have just poof.
3 trucks.
And went sailing over this house. And so we had wet drywall. Needless to say, we made it fine. We were okay. It made for a great night. But here we are. We're in a rain delay. Dar's out on the back part of the ranch with Craig, who is the only hunter left to fill. And it's raining sideways and blowing sideways out there, so we ducked back in the house. Hunter's cutting up some back straps. We had great back straps last night. We soaked it in Italian dressing, and Hunter's whipping up his magic again, and we're going to eat that tonight with some meatballs or chicken, whichever we decide. But Glad to have you here, Jason. I want to first tell me where you're from. I already said Utah, but where?
Farmington, Utah, just north of Salt Lake there.
Okay, north of Salt Lake. And born and raised?
Born in Utah, but raised in Idaho. A little town called Emmett, Idaho.
Emmett, Idaho. And so when did you then move back to Utah?
2002.
2002.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so growing up there in Idaho, did you get quite a bit of hunting in?
We did. We had dogs. We hunted a lot of bear and lion, and, of course, deer and elk and antelope, whatever we could.
Okay. So I haven't hunted in Idaho, but you can attest, and that's the sound of Haynes putting beautiful little medallion back straps in a little plastic bag and fixing to marinate. Before the wolves moved in, and I don't know if it's in your area of Idaho, but did you see a significant decrease in the amount of deer and elk and moose in your area, or were the wolves already there when you were prowling around?
No, the wolves were there, but of course they populated pretty good, and I think they did put a dent in the herd. But you was always able to find deer and elk, but it sure wasn't like it used to be.
And growing up, you guys chased mainly lion and bear?
Correct, yeah.
So what are the season structures like in Idaho as far as, is it a pretty liberal season as far as a long period of time, and is there quotas, and once the quota's filled, or how does it work?
Well, it's just over-the-counter tags, majority, but there's a couple of draw units, but we always try to get a tag in. If not,
are we talking deer, or are you talking?
Bear.
Oh, bear,
yep,
okay.
Yep,
okay.
There's a 22 and a 32, 32 tag, which was a coveted tag for bear,
okay,
where you guy could go out and catch, I'm not kidding, maybe 10 bear a day with your dogs.
You would tree 10 bear a day?
Yeah, no problem.
No kidding. And trophy quality bear?
Not trophy quality.
Just lots of them.
Yeah, just anywhere from cubs to a good sized boar. But there's trophies in there. We was able to get 2 or 3 a year.
So over-the-counter tags, and then after so many bears are shot, do they shut the unit down, or how does
I don't
it work?
think in Idaho they do. I think it's just whatever
Whack
tags they sell. Yep. There's some areas up north that you can actually get 2 bear.
Gotcha. And what time of year were you normally running bear?
Spring and fall.
Spring
There's
and
a
fall.
spring season and a fall season.
Okay.
But the fall season would, you'd have to wait till the rifle hunters for deer and elk would be out of there.
Okay.
So it was only that short window before.
Gotcha. And I have never been bear hunting with dogs. I know, Haynes, you've been bear hunting with dogs a little bit.
Yeah.
What are those bears like compared to, say, a lion, or when you cut a track? I mean, is it usually a pretty quick process where the dogs can get after them and get them treed, or do they run for a long ways?
Bears usually run a long ways.
Okay.
Yep.
So they don't tree up quick.
No, especially a big boar. He'll fight. He'll walk all day. You just have to get in and take a look at him.
Sit on the ground and fight you once you do catch them.
Now,
Always
will the
makes
bears
me-
fight the dogs bad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll fight them.
What kind of dogs were you running mainly?
We had a mixed bag. We had walkers, mostly English red tick dogs, and blue ticks.
So would you have certain areas that you just knew held bear, and you would just go and hit those areas, or would you just randomly go places just trying new areas and freelancing around?
Usually you knew where some bears would hang out, so you stick the dogs on the rig and you just drive the canyons until they struck, and then you'd turn loose and see what was at the end of it.
So you're not actually looking for track. The dogs will actually strike as you're driving?
Correct.
Really?
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you have a lead dog like out on the front, or are they in the dog box?
No, we got them up on top of the box, a strike rack.
Okay.
They call it, yep.
So most of the dogs are in the rack, inside the boxes, but then you have a couple of your strikers that are...
Correct, yep.
Okay. And how fast can you be going and they'll strike?
It's those mountain roads. So you usually don't go pretty. You don't go.
So you're just putting along.
Yeah, just putting along.
And they'll immediately, if they can smell it from way up.
They get those thermals and stuff coming down or up, and they know where it's coming from. And you got a dog you turn loose and lines it out, and then you dump the box.
How often do the dogs go the wrong way?
It happens, but the majority of the time they go the right way.
Okay. So as you move to Utah, do you run the dogs near as much, or?
I have a cousin that still has dogs out in Vernal that I go out with when I can.
Vernal, Utah?
Correct, yep.
Vernal, Utah is kind of dear to my heart. I go right through Vernal, Utah when I go to the Green River up there at Flaming Gorge to go float the A, B, and C section there. And Vernal's a neat spot because it's kind of like down, kind of in the desert, but it's got access to some pretty neat mountains right there.
You do, yeah.
So what kind of season does Utah have as far as being able to go and run the bears?
They got a training season, but usually if you don't draw a tag, you're not hunting. But you can go out and train your dogs. If you can do a pursuit tag or a pursuit season if you draw one of those.
Okay, so getting a tag in Utah is hard, but you can actually go run the dogs and then just pull them off once they tree something?
Correct, yep.
And do you actually have to have a training tag, or can you just go run them and pull the dogs and never have a gun or anything like that?
There are certain times that you have to have a training tag, but there's times that you just can go out and train your dogs without a gun or stuff.
Gotcha. And do you still pursue lion as well with dogs, or mainly just bear?
My cousin, when I go out with him, he does both.
What's his name?
Brad Evans.
Brad Evans.
Cornerstone Outfitters.
Okay, so he outfits for
He
it.
does.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Haynes, you've had some success. You love bears, by the way. You
Love
like
bears.
the spot and stalk
Yeah.
bears, but you'll hunt a bear any way you can.
Oh, yeah.
What is it about those bears? I'll ask both of you, but Haynes, you first. By the way, ladies, he is still single. Even after the last podcast, we had tons of inquiries. Keep them coming. On Instagram, Hunt_Haynes. That's It's Hunt Haynes, Haynes. Okay.
Every time, Jason.
Am I going to get a commission if one of these ladies, if it comes through and she becomes the one?
We'll work something out.
Get a finder's fee?
Finder's fee for sure.
Okay,
Dating
back
service.
to the bears. What is it about bears, Haynes, that you like so much?
I just love watching them. Such a neat animal. Sit and watch them, climb oak trees and shake them and climb down and, they'll sit on their butt and scoop them into a pile, and just neat animals to watch, period. Just got a passion for hunting them and just even watching them.
What's been your experience, Haynes, using dogs and bears, running them around? Or they just run like crazy?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We live in some country, obviously, the Mogollon Rim, and running bears in that country can be brutal. You've seen it. They'll go up and down and up and down, and, a lot of times you don't catch them, or you do catch them, or like we were talking, you'll get a big boar and they won't tree sometimes, and you'll just, you'll get them in a rock pile, and they'll
swat the dog.
Yep. But yeah, just an awesome creature. Probably one of my favorite animals to hunt. Different terrains too. I like hunting them, further south and different stuff, and then oaks, pears. Obviously, the pears are fun to find them in.
What time of year in Arizona are the pears? Like, is pear hunting the best, where you can glass them in the pears? Like, what season is time of year is best?
Kind of, like going into fall. In between fall. Starting to cool down. I don't spend a whole lot of time hunting them in the pears because, that and even hunting them in August, I don't. They're ratty looking. I spend all my time in October. The weather's nice. Their fur's full. They're not ratty. Yeah, I'm mainly an October guy, but
October.
Yeah, I'll
as
go
soon as
whenever.
elk season's over,
Yeah.
I'm usually ready to get back to town, and Hunter's just getting fired up to go bear hunting for the whole month.
Love it, man.
And
Can't find a whole lot of people that really want to, hunt them, but there's those few you find that love bears too. But
For sure. I know you do well every year. Jason, what is it for you about bears and running bears that you just love?
I don't know. I just like to watch the dogs work. Just how they can smell a bear up a canyon and know which way to start it and run it, and just to see what's on the other end of the line, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. There's always something, different colors, phases. It's just a neat time. Spring, fall, it's just a neat time of year to be out in the mountains.
How often those bears get up in the tree, if they do tree them, and the dogs, how often will they actually come back down, or once they're up, or do they pretty much stay up?
Once they're up, they're usually up. Sometimes you have some that come down, but dogs will push them right back up.
Gotcha. I want to ask you, this is your first experience seeing Coues deer. and you shot a nice buck. Just want to ask you just your general thoughts on what you've witnessed and what you've seen about these deer, what you like, anything like that.
Oh, man, it's amazing. I guess they call it the gray ghost for a reason. You guys have a trained eye, I'll tell you. You guys can pick them out of some crazy country that blend in. They're a beautiful little deer. Nothing like I've seen before, just a beautiful, tight rack, just a beautiful creature.
Yeah. I think, it's amazing when you get to see them pretty close and you can really look at the detail and the eyelashes and the eyes and all the, the sleek features of their face. And they're just a neat animal. I mean, and not that the mule deer isn't, because they have their own uniqueness, but definitely a little Coues deer is certainly an animal that after you've seen them, you kind of are happy that you've been able to witness them.
Oh, absolutely. It's a trip of a lifetime, and a bunch of great guys we was able to hang out with, and great guides that were hospitable and friendly, like with friends from the start. It was a trip of a lifetime.
Yeah, that's great. And your buck, tell me, you guys were together on your buck. Tell me when you first saw him, kind of how it all went down, and what you were thinking about the deer and what you liked about him.
Hunter, I'll tell you what, he can find these deer.
So far, Hunter's killed every buck. We're 4 for 5, and he's killed all 4 of them.
He's been part of it for sure. Yeah, I couldn't ask, for a better experience. And that just, Hunter said, hey, there's a good buck, probably the best one we've seen yet.
Yeah.
And so I looked at it. I was like, let's go take a closer look, pretty much. So, and there's nothing flat around here in Sonora, Mexico, where we're out in this ranch, just straight up and down, walking on marbles. So he's in great shape, and I just try to keep up. And
did well.
We hiked quite a bit, so we got to the top of the peak there, and he told me to take a look at him. And I looked at him. I was like, what do you think? He's like, he's a good one, the best one we've seen yet. It's like, okay, that'll work.
Perfect.
And what was it, 400 yards? And
400.
Sitting in a rock pile trying to shooting, Jay's gun. Thanks for letting me borrow your gun.
Well, yeah, so Jason was the Epic Outdoors hunt winner, but they didn't do their drawing, I think, till mid-December, maybe even late December.
About 3 weeks ago.
So I had already got my gun permitted just in case, it was too late to get your gun. So you were shooting my 257 Weatherby.
Yep.
And you were lined up at 400 yards, and I think the deer was bedded, right? So you had to wait for him to get up.
No, I couldn't, because like I said, the gray ghost, and my great eyes are trying to find it. First, he's like, there he is, and then he disappeared, and I was like, oh, great, I just blew an opportunity. But he popped right back where he was, and I was able to line it up and get it done. It worked out great.
That's awesome. And Hunter, that particular spot where we've got kind of a little rut hole, and you found that spot, and we've been able to take several deer right there in that same area. What is it about that you think that is bringing those bucks in there?
I don't know. I just think, I think there's not only one, I think there's probably 2 hot does in there. Cameron's buck, I mean, it was insane, the routing. Seth's on the radio talking me into this buck. He actually glassed the buck up early that morning. So I went down, and finally the deer came on my side, and they're just running this poor doe, 4 bucks. Seth actually got on the radio and proceeded to say that they watched him push her over like a 20-foot cliff, and she laid there for 2 minutes in a bush, with her legs up. And, just insane. I mean, they were running.
Come in, guys.
Cameron even shot his and actually hit it in the leg the first shot, and those bucks were still rutting. I mean, he was jumping off ledges, trying to, do everything he could to fend off them little bucks from getting his doe from him. So
yeah, that fight that you guys videoed was insane.
Yeah, just
well, look
intense.
What the cat drug in. We're joined here by Dark Colburn, whose face is red as a.
He's got some frost coming out of his nose.
Frost. Hey, the heater's on in here. We just were joined by Craig and Dar and Mr. Zach, who's put another log. No, he's just warming his hands over there by the oven. What's up, fellas?
Not the temperature or the wind. Wind's up, yeah.
Could you see that big old storm coming right towards us? We were able to make it back just in time. Well, we've added one more to the pile here. We've got Zach Holt from Indiana. What town are you from?
Vincennes.
Vincennes. That's French, you tell me.
Yep.
How does that work in Indiana?
What do you mean?
How is
what
it
work?
French? Is it just...
So Vincennes was Indiana's first state capital,
Yes?
and it was an old fur trading post in the American Revolution, and it was where a lot of the buffalo actually crossed into the Kentucky plains. It's got a whole lot of really cool history.
That is
and,
cool.
It was settled by French, fur traders, and we have a Revolutionary War reenactment that happens every year there, and it's
Really?
kind of a cool little place.
So where is Vincennes in relation to, if you're looking at Indiana, where is it?
So Indiana kind of looks like a stocking, so it'd be like down by the toes,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
Okay.
So southwestern Indiana.
And Zach, a bio on you. You work for Hoyt Archery.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Myself?
Yeah, a little bio.
Well, I've worked for Hoyt for about 10 years. Been in the outdoor industry for a long time. Worked my way through Cabela's. Bounced around to a lot of different retail stores. Opened up a lot of Cabela's stores, and ended up having an opportunity to go work for Hoyt. And I've been there for 10 years, and I've got right around 80 dealers that I do business with in Kentucky and Tennessee and Indiana. And man, it's been fun.
So you kind of work that tri-state area.
Yep.
And so are you technically a rep in that you're a rep for Hoyt and you go and hit all the different bow shops and you kind of have accounts in those 3 states?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yep. Mainly work specifically with dealers and do help them with training, make sure their staff's up to date, introduce the new products, work promos for them, work with pro staffers, take care of all national shooting events in my territory, that sort of thing.
Gotcha. Well, it's been fun having you. I already asked Jason here on his first Coues deer hunt, kind of his experience, and you're a Coues newbie. You hadn't seen a Coues, I don't think, until you came here.
I had to Google it.
Yeah, I had to Google it. What are your impressions?
They're a really cool little deer. I was fascinated with them. I found a shed. We were hunting in New Mexico, me and my dad, in the Gila National Forest, and I found a cool little, I don't know what it would have been, maybe a 35-inch shed or something like that. It was a 5-point, actually, and I had no idea that there were whitetails down there, and that kind of started my whole obsession with what is this little deer. I'm a big whitetail hunter back home. I hunt Indiana and Illinois primarily, sometimes Kentucky, but just been fascinated with them. And after yesterday, after seeing that fight that laid out in front of us, that was killer. These things they go for broke. They're cool little deer.
Fierce buggers, aren't they, for sure? How do you see, what similarities do you see in your Midwest deer and in these deer? Obviously, they're cousins.
Yeah.
But what do you feel like are some things that are very similar or maybe some differences that you do see?
I mean, their mannerisms are definitely right on point. The phase of the rut, we've been here this is day 6, I believe, and we got here just before the kind of the peak of the rut, and so you can kind of watch that kind of ramp up. And so, your 2 and 3 year olds are the ones that are first on their feet, cruising, looking for does, nudging around the yearlings, acting interested. That's perfectly right. What you see at home, that last week of October, you always see those 2, 3 year olds out cruising, and it's usually not until about November 7th, November 14th, whenever you really start seeing the big boys get on their feet. And we're starting to see a little bit of that here, on this hunt. So, it was a couple of days ago I saw one. It may have actually been the first day. He did a full range of mannerisms and vocalizations, and I haven't seen one snort wheeze. I don't know if that's
they do it.
Do they?
Yeah.
That's actually really rare even at home. You're hunting really tight woodlots, and I've only heard that a handful of times. But from lip curling to making scrapes, making rubs, they're just a little miniature Midwest whitetail.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, they have every bit of that wariness that your deer have, and the fact that Midwest whitetail and basically the eastern whitetail, they're on point and on alert at all times. And these deer, your deer, I think, are on point because there's a lot of human interference, and they have to be on guard or they're going to get shot at. These deer, are getting chased by coyotes and bobcats and lions every twist and turn of their day, but they still have that real keen alert. Have you noticed some of that?
Oh, today we were watching a doe with twin fawns just an hour ago, and about every 15 to 20 seconds, that doe would just jerk. I mean, she would just come, almost come unhinged, and then she'd settle back down for, 15, 20 seconds. But they're wound quite a bit tighter than our deer are. So these deer don't even know we're really hunting them. We're, as far away as we're glassing them. And they're acting like our deer do 2 weeks into gun season.
Right.
So they're wound quite a bit tighter than what I'm used to with our Midwest deer.
Yeah. What was your perception last night of our big windstorm that we had? Could you hear all the chaos, or did you sleep right through it?
Oh, no. I mean, we could hear it for sure. I didn't expect these doors to be on the front of the house whenever I woke up this morning. I mean, they were knocking hard.
I heard you guys had the wind blowing right down your chimney.
The chimney, yeah.
Nice air conditioner in it.
His bed's a little bit closer to the chimney, so I haven't really noticed it too much, to be honest with you.
Yesterday, you guys found that buck, and you and Dar were able to sneak in pretty close for our standards. What were you, a couple hundred yards?
Dar said we were like 220.
Yeah, and then you
225.
waited that deer out. How long did you have to wait that deer out, and what were you waiting for as far as did you not have a shot? And then once he did stand up, how did that all go down?
Yeah, so we glassed that buck up, and we watched him kind of get his butt kicked by a big bully 2-point, and he kind of went over and bedded and kind of licked his wounds, and he kind of had a busted ear and a gimpy leg, and he went over and bedded down, and in between, I guess it would have been some mesquites, and what was behind him, Hunter?
2 oak trees.
2 oak trees,
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So he would have actually, in hindsight, he would have been in a great bow stocking position, but the wind was whipping through there. But at any rate, we watched him go bed down, and how long did we? Was it about 2 hours? We watched him
2+ hours.
Yeah. So
did he ever get up and change positions?
Yeah. He got up 2 or 3 times and just kind of switched angle, or switched in his bed. Kind of put his his head was facing. I guess it would have been south, and he flipped around a couple of times, but he kept on flipping his ears back and forth and shaking his head. I mean, he wasn't feeling too hot, but we knew that it was just a matter of time before he got up and got out of his bed and actually gave us an opening. But yeah, we sat there and just waited him out, and we knew we might be committed to that until dark. And at one point, I asked Dar, like, "Hey, so what's the game plan here?" And he said, "No, we're just going to hang out here." So yeah, Dar had to share his sandwich with me for lunch because I didn't pack anything. Or actually, my gun was on my pack, and my lunch was inside the pack. And so, but Dar kept me company and kept me calm. And I don't kill very many animals with a rifle. I'm from a shotgun state, and I'm a bow hunter at heart. So, but I hammered him. I mean,
you did,
honestly.
Dar got it all on video through his phone scope, and it's great video. That buck, you hammered him. He did the perfect jump up and kick. Just like the perfect shot. So that's your first Coues deer. glad you both are here. I'm glad you both got to experience your first Coues deer hunt with us. We've had a great time with you guys.
It's been a lot of fun.
I got a question about Indiana. Are a lot of places in Indiana, from what I hear, there's a lot of hunting around metropolitan areas, and there's a lot of archery-only areas, from what I understand. Mm-hmm. Does Vincennes fall into that category as far as having some of that, or is that by some of the larger towns? Because I hear there can be some really good archery hunting.
Yeah. They're Ohio and Indiana are kind of known for their urban deer zones and just having some bruisers in their urban deer zones. Typically, the season starts a little bit earlier in some of those zones, but in Indiana, that deer. A buck killed in that zone doesn't count towards your statewide. We have a statewide 1 buck rule that was in effect, went into effect probably about 7-8 years ago maybe, and so those bucks don't count towards that. But yeah, they can get really big. Vincennes is a really small town. I'm not sure what our population is. I'm thinking like 13,000. It's pretty small. So, we're already kind of in the country, so. That's usually around obviously Indianapolis, Fort Wayne, stuff like that. But yeah, no, they pull out some monsters in some of those urban zones.
Do you go to the National Wild Turkey Federation deal in Nashville?
I'm going this year. I've been a couple times. I didn't make it last year, but me and my father-in-law we're planning on going this year.
Cool, I'll be there.
Yeah,
I love that show. I missed it last year because it's always the same time, Jason, as the Western Hunting Expo in Utah in Salt Lake City. Last year I went to Salt Lake City, but this year I'm going to go back to NWTF. It's just being a turkey nut. It's just such a fun show.
It's an awesome show, isn't it?
It's a really awesome show, and you got, 70,000 turkey nuts all there. And
yep.
You get to see all the custom calls and the box calls and the slates and all the different manufacturers there. So it's a great show. Do you go as a vendor, or you just go for fun?
So I actually reached out to him to see if I could get a booth for Hoyt. It's become such a big show that I really think Hoyt, as a company, we need to be there. And I've talked to Hoyt about that. They actually have a waiting list. I mean, they're that packed.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can get a booth space allocated to us here in the next year or two. It's definitely a show that we need to be at, but we've not set up there up to this point. I just think Hoyt kind of needed me to tell him, hey, this is something we need to be at, and it's cool to be in a room with that many turkey nuts. It's rare to be around. Me and you have kind of connected on that level, and it's cool to have that many of the same type of people in the same room because I like hanging out and talking turkey.
I do too.
Stories.
I mean, I even like going to restaurants at night there within the hotel, and even lunch, and you can just go and sit down, and you're sitting right next to it. And next thing you know, you're pulled up a chair and you're chatting with guys about hunting in different states. Mm-hmm. And there's something about turkeys. I don't know what it is, but the turkey hunters, it for me, it seems like the big game hunting out west and some of the stuff with the mule deer and the elk and the sheep. It always seems like this guide service doesn't like this one, and these guys, and there's a clique, and but for whatever reason, I don't know, it doesn't seem to translate into the turkeys as much. It's more of kind of a brotherhood, and I'm not putting anybody down in the Western U.S., but it just seems that for whatever reason, that vibe at that show is like everybody wants to hear each other's stories. And it's not like competition. It's like, hey, what's the birds doing in your state? Where do you like to hunt?
Right.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's in Nashville, and so you're in the Mid-South already. And when you start talking to some of those old school Southern turkey hunters, those guys from Alabama and Tennessee, and that's just they're cut from a different cloth. Yeah. I mean, in our neck of the woods, the turkey is a big game species. We have deer and we have turkey, and other than that, you're all rabbit and quail, and but the turkey is definitely second on the list, and for a lot of us, it's first.
Yeah.
As far as what we like going after.
Yeah, that's awesome. Jason, you were saying in 2015 you obviously had to go to the Western Hunting Expo in Utah because the only way to apply for that draw.
No, this is actually a sportsman's draw through Utah, just the regular turn in, first
Okay.
of the year kind of thing.
Tell me about that. So the residents can apply for that. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, there's a sportsman application for. There's a desert, Rocky Mountain, mountain goat, moose, deer, and elk and pronghorn. And if you draw one of those tags, you get a hunt from September 1st to December 31st for that species in any unit in the state.
Nice. And so, when were you notified that you had won the Desert Bighorn tag in Utah in 15?
I believe it was November. They sent just an email out, and I read through it. Unsuccessful, 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 and then successful. And I was in a movie with my little girl, and I left the movie. I just couldn't stay any longer. I was calling everybody I knew. So pretty exciting time for sure.
So how much time did that give you to prepare for the hunt then?
Quite a bit.
So was that November and then you had
Correct.
to...
November of 14,
Okay.
and then I had to till September 1st of 15.
Gotcha. And up until that point, had you really been into sheep, or did
Not
you
at
have
all.
to really immerse yourself in sheep and the videos and photos and kind of get a sense of what you were looking for?
Yeah, exactly. I of course, I'd love to. Always wanted to hunt sheep, but I just never really thought about it, to be honest.
Yeah.
And now that's kind of consumes me. I turn in for every raffle, banquet, whatever, just trying to, fulfill that fire, I guess.
Once you see those yellow horns, I don't know what it is about them, but for me, it was 09. It just captivated me. My friend drew a tag. A real good friend of mine, Glenn Hall, drew a tag in western Arizona, and neither one of us really knew anything about sheep. And, I mean, as soon as he drew his tag, it was, I wanted to know everything I could possibly learn about it, and watched every video and read everything I could find on the internet. And then, with the scouting and going out and documenting rams and videoing, and, they didn't have phone scope back then, but, digiscoping, and even just, holding little point and shoot cameras up to your spotting scope, just trying to take photos and try and get a sense at what we were looking at. For us, and I want to get your experiences, it seemed like everything was new and fresh, and it was real exciting. It was fun for me. Did you feel that same thing when you first started seeing rams? Did you go out and scout? I know you hired Adam Bronson. Did you get to see quite a bit of sheep?
No, actually, we didn't do really much scouting. We went down with Adam once, and it was a lot like this weather here, rainy and windy, so we didn't see much. And he reassured me that, don't worry, we know where the rams are. We'll be okay.
Yeah.
And I wasn't disappointed.
Yeah.
It was like you said, it just consumes you. You read every magazine, book. I started digging through old magazines, reading about them, how to score a ram, what a big ram looks like.
Yeah.
I was just always under the assumption that you wanted length, but
Gotta have
that
a
mass,
Yeah.
mass is where it's at.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's rams that you like the look of, and then there's rams that score well, but maybe you don't like the look, and you got to kind of find a mix in between. You want to find an old ram if you can, and then I always encourage guys to find a ram that they like the look of the most, because that's most guys are going to shoot probably one sheep in their life. Not everybody's fortunate to kill multiple rams, and so you got to like the one you shoot. And so sometimes a few inches here or there, if you don't like the look of the ram, it's important. You got to like the look of the ram you're after.
No, it was a huge learning curve, and Adam and Wayne Brown and his dad Dave and his brother Aaron were there every step of the way. It's like how to age a ram, what we're looking for. It's a young ram. He has good potential. He's good looking, but we could do better. And we hunted, I think, a total of maybe 15, 18 days off and on down there, and we've seen numerous rams. One ram they were guessing over 170, which is a big ram for Utah, but unfortunately he was on the Arizona side, and he never did come back over. But we hunted hard, and great group of guys, and I learned a lot from him, and we became friends, just like this camp here. That's what's cool about the hunting world.
That is true. I mean, you build a lot of great friends around. For me, around hunting and fishing, you build some of your most favorite and loved friends around hunting and fishing. That's awesome. Guys, we're in a weather delay, and today's just been off and on rain showers, glassing, not glassing, putting the binos away. But tomorrow we're supposed to have a good day. Supposed to be cold and only 4-mile-an-hour wind. So we've got 1 buck left to kill. We've got 4 out of 5 bucks. Craig's still holding out. Hopefully we can. He's got kind of the governor's tag now because we're all going to spread out and try and find him a buck in the morning. What do you think the chances are, Hunter?
I think they're pretty good.
I think they're good.
I think we got a lot of good eyes out there.
There was 1 buck that Seth had seen that we still haven't been able to put our eyes on. I think that buck for now has given us the slip. It's frustrating when, we know that there's a really nice buck around and can't seem to figure out which direction he went, and then half the time you wonder if he's right back where he was.
Yeah.
But that's always the dilemma.
Hopefully he'll show up in our little rut hole.
Yeah. Do you guys have any more hunts coming up? Obviously this is the first of the year, 2017. The way we kind of look at it, it's kind of the end of our year, and then we go through February, March, and then turkey season for us kind of starts our year. What do you guys have coming up in Indiana and or in Utah after this, or are you done for a while?
Well, I turn in for a lot of western states, and so that's still to be determined. And then like the Western Hunting Convention there in Salt Lake Expo, there's always a chance to win some good tags there.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. In order to apply for those expo tags, you have to be present, right?
Correct. You have to validate at the expo.
Right, and I think that's one of the reasons that they have a really good turnout there is they give away a bunch of great tags, and you have to be there to validate the tag. So it usually creates an unbelievable turnout.
It does. It generates a lot of money for the economy for sure.
Yeah. How about you, Zach? Are you going to do any late-season whitetail hunting or anything?
I'm going to officially eat my Illinois tag, which is pretty normal for me. I'm usually hunting a fairly good buck there, and I just hold out, and either I kill him or I don't, So that actually, what is today? That was 21st? Like the 15th it went out.
Okay.
This is kind of, I'm like you guys, this is capping my season off, and then I kind of restart here with turkey season.
Yeah.
So I've got it in my phone. I don't know what starts first, but I think it's Kentucky, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, Missouri this year for me.
For turkeys?
Yeah.
So how many birds potentially might you kill this season?
Thinking 10.
10.
Yeah.
How many of those with a bow?
I'll probably do 4 to 5 of them with a bow.
4 to 5 with a bow.
Yeah, 3 to 4. It just depends.
When your birds typically there, depending on what state, when do they really start firing up?
Boy, weather is definitely going to be, depending on how cold it is. But always that April 15th to the end of April is always going to be going somewhere for sure.
So you're hitting that many states in that short a period of time. Literally, do you go kill a bird and bounce that night over to another state and start hunting the next morning?
It can be that way. Try to go home for a day or two in between each state. But there's so many birds. I think we're in the good old days of turkey hunting right now. There's just birds absolutely everywhere. And if you're half a turkey hunter, you can usually make it pretty. A lot of times you almost you tag out too quick, and you kind of wish
it wasn't over.
Yeah, you wish you had more time to hunt.
Yeah.
So there's sometimes I'll drag my feet whenever the season's. I've only got one state left. I'm like, man, I don't want turkey season to be over with, because there's nowhere else. Or I'll try to hurry up and get another state in if I can. But
if you still got tags in your pocket, you have a way to justify and be like, honey, I still got
That's right.
tags. But as soon as you don't have
That's right.
tags, she's like, wait a minute, I thought you shot your last one. Well,
Thankfully, she likes to eat them, and our whole family. I mean, we pretty much live on wild game. So, and there's, so a lot of people don't like, wild turkey, but I love it.
How's your favorite way to prepare it?
I have a recipe that I cut it in strips, and it's like equal parts olive oil and white wine and butter. You put a little bit of butter in there, and then you sprinkle Cajun seasoning over it, and you put all that inside of a roaster bag, like you would a Thanksgiving turkey, and you bake it in that, and it's killer, dude. It's so good. That or just like straight up southern fried, in strips with some mashed potatoes and gravy. That's not bad either.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. From what I hear, Tennessee's just exploding with turkeys.
Yeah, I need to. I mean, I've got dealers down there, and they always say, "Hey, come check us out." I actually had a dealer outside of Lynchburg, and he told me that the mash that Jack Daniels dumps, they sell that to the area cattle farmers, and I guess the turkeys love that mash. And they'll just go in there and just eat the tar out of it, and he says it's just like shooting fish in a barrel. But so I need to go check that out sometime. I've never hunted turkeys in Tennessee.
Wow.
One day.
So what state do you hunt the most for turkeys?
Indiana Indiana or Illinois.
How many bird state is Indiana?
They're just one.
One
yeah.
bird state.
Well, you can kill one. It's actually by the county. You can kill them in the fall too. Which I usually I'm able to knock one out of a tree stand every now and then. That's actually really hard to do, but I've been fortunate enough to get drawn. Once you get drawn on one, you're good to go. But you can kill them in the fall, a couple of them, and you can kill them in the spring. But in the spring, it's usually you just kill one in each one of those states. Kentucky, I believe, is 2, if I'm not mistaken. Missouri, I think, is 3. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Haynes and I love those Goulds, don't we?
It's fun. We'll be down there shortly.
They get in your blood, those suckers.
I'm going to come down and do one with you.
Yeah, it's
sure.
a fun hunt just because they act different than any turkey you've ever been around in the fact that they're not call shy at all. They love to strut. They love to gobble. And they love to come beat up the decoys. I can't tell you how many hunters Haynes and I have. And I've got a decoy. I've got enough decoys literally to fill up this room, Dave Smith decoys. And we start getting the decoys out, and they're like, "You're not going to use those, are you? You're not going to put those out?" And we're like, "Oh yeah,
yeah, we are."
Put them out. And they're looking at us like those don't work.
Oh,
and
really?
We're just like, yeah, just wait. And they, a lot of places they tell me, "Oh, our field turkeys." They're shy of decoys and such, and our Goulds, we use the full strutters, the Dave Smith full strutters, and we put the real tail fan on them. Sometimes we'll even put strings on them and move them around, and those Goulds, for whatever reason, they either see a Jake decoy or a full strut and gobbler, and they just come straight to it and just start destroying it.
That's neat.
It, huh?
Oh, just awesome. We had some guys from Canada last year that all shot their birds with their bows, and the other thing Gould's turkey hunters don't understand when they come hunt with us is they've got their just souped up turkey guns shooting, out to 60, 65 yards and these loads. And most our birds were shooting them at 20, 22, 25 yards, just right there. And you get to witness the whole show. So hopefully it'll be another great season.
Oh, it will be, for sure.
Yeah. So I'll be bringing a recurve then. That's what's going to happen.
A couple years ago, a friend, a client, but became a friend, Joe Bittner, he wanted to shoot one with his longbow and his recurve. And we got to the ranch, one particular ranch, and Dar, we had 2 hunters, and Dar had the other hunter. And for whatever reason, we left the ranch house from one ranch house where we left the trailers to the upper ranch house. We left a little later, and I wanted to check one spot, and Joe was still in his blue jeans and what have you, and we had decoys and our gear and stuff, and we were headed up to the upper ranch house because at this place, it's kind of it's a cool cabin up kind of higher on the ranch, and I said, I just want to check this spot, so I pulled over, I shut off the Ranger and called, and birds started gobbling. I'm like, he's looking at me trying to get his bow out and get all the decoys and get the blind. And anyway, we get set up, and he shot two birds on the first night before we had even gotten to the
In his blue jeans.
We threw him in the blind.
That's awesome.
And it was pretty awesome. Well, guys, it's been awesome having you here on the podcast, and it's been great having you down here. Happy you were able to win the hunt through Epic Outdoors, and happy that you were able to come. Zach,
Thanks
look
for
forward
having
to
me,
seeing
man.
you hopefully at NWTF. And we've got Craig here. We've got one last day tomorrow. Supposed to be a great day. Hopefully we can all spread out and find Craig a trophy buck. We've got four out of 5 of you guys have filled out, and we're just going to take one more look around. Hopefully have a great day tomorrow of spotting deer, and maybe pull a rabbit out of our hat and see if we can find a big deer for Craig to kill.
I appreciate you guys. It's been great.
That's awesome. What do you think, Haynes?
Oh, great group of guys, great hunting. And then
Haynes, you about cut
Off we
your
go.
finger off there.
I did. I was cutting some back straps up and about
It's all
cut
swelled up now.
my knuckle off. But it'll be worth it once they're on the grill, right?
Hey, with as many girls that are going to be calling in, you got to have your hands need to be in good shape.
Right.
Those
There
girls
goes,
like
there goes your hand modeling.
those
Right.
girls like to hold hands, buddy.
Yeah. Not right now. A little bit beat up from the mesquites, packing Zach's deer out. And
Yeah. Haynes is notorious for throwing these deer over his shoulder and packing them out. He's done it. He does about every other deer that way, and I think he just likes to show us how big and strong and tough he is.
just quick and effective.
Well, guys, let's get after them tomorrow. Thanks for sitting in on the podcast and sharing some local knowledge with us. And I think we'll go out and get maybe the last hour of glassing in here. Maybe we can spot a buck here on this mountain behind the house.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Jake.